Welcome to the War on Dad Bods podcast. Today we have two very special guests joining us from their car. Hey, Barbara and Dean, how you doing? Barbara and Dean Blank.
Hey, yeah, our office, our mobile office.
Yes. We
Well,
actually take a lot of calls from here, to be quite honest.
We do. You know why? Because, and I think any business owner can relate to this, is like if you don't somehow like sneak away and like hide yourself, you just it's like we'll be in the middle of a meeting in our office and people just walk in like, "Hey, did you guys check the Lola?" We're like, "Oh, okay." So sometimes this is the only place that people can't reach, can't find us. We should do this more often when the kids are home.
Yeah,
that'd be
that'd
great.
be interesting.
Well, let's
And
let's
Hide in here.
let's talk a bit about your business. So, people that are listening and watching, some of us have a lot going on, and deciding what to eat every day is just another thing that we have to stress about and sort out. A lot of people don't have time to cook and clean dishes, and not to mention the time it takes to go to the grocery store and pick out that. And at the grocery store, you get tempted with impulse buying. And guys that are listening, maybe your wife is feeling overwhelmed. Well, Barbara and Dean have a solution that might make her life easier. Guys, real quick, tell us what you do. Tell us the story, the origin story of Clean Creations.
Yeah. Do you want to tell it or you want me to tell it?
I'll let Barbara tell it. But quickly, to sum up what we do, I think we serve health, wellness, and convenience. That's kind of the bulk of what we do. And then Barbara can go into the details of the origin and
Yeah, so when Dane and I first met, he was in outdoor construction and I was a personal trainer and I was also competing in bikini in bodybuilding. And so I was really started getting involved in competing. That's when bikini was like a very new division. I competed locally and then nationally and then turned pro. So I was always like dieting and prepping out my food. And at that time, meal prep businesses weren't really a thing at all. They didn't even exist. No plated, no home chef, none of that was even a thing. And for sure, no meal delivery kits or anything like that. So Dean and I were always talking about like, man, if there was just more healthy options on the go. And simultaneously, my clients were watching me bring food with me everywhere. And they're like, oh, well, if I just had somebody, cook my food for me, I would look like you too. I'm like, okay, like call your bluff. I will cook the food for you and, deliver it. And you'll start to see results. And really, it grew just like that. It was just by word of mouth. We had a couple of clients that we were cooking for on the weekend. We were grilling the food, we were cooking the food, we were packaging the food, we were delivering the food together. And then we started picking up some steam and then it just turned into a real business. And at some point, I remember having a conversation with Dean, like, hey, I need you full time to come do this with me. So he moved on from outdoor construction and 14 years later, we, you know, we have this insane, amazing business that's helped so many people really live a healthier life and really
And
see real results.
and it's Clean Creation. So compared to other brands, what do other brands do and what do y'all do to keep it clean?
I think one of the biggest things with our company, and it's been since day one, is the quality of ingredients that we're using. And we're completely always evolving. I'm always learning, and you don't know what you don't know. So over the years, we've really changed a lot of things. Like now we only cook with olive oil. We only use organic chicken. We only use, local Gulf shrimp. We make our seasoning blends. We're really mindful about the ingredients that we put into the food, and we design them to be anti-inflammatory. And that's what we call clean per se. So I think a lot of times with meal delivery services, people do get caught up in like the weight loss aspect of it, and that is part of it. I've always really focused on the health is the priority, and weight loss is just a side effect of that. And so, where I've seen a lot of other meal delivery services kind of fail is because they do this like fad thing where they do calorie deficits, and the quality of the ingredients in the meals are not really all that great. In fact, they can actually be more harmful than good, but people lose weight because they're eating a calorie deficit, right? So I think one of the things that has set us apart and the reason why we are still in business and we are still really thriving is the fact that we've always prioritized the quality of the ingredients in our food first and made sure that those meals were really conducive to people's health and wellness.
Yeah. And I want to highlight what you said there about you aim at being healthy and having clean food, and then the weight loss happens, the inflammation comes off, all the health problems start to disappear, your energy is great. But if you just eat less calories out of some packaged food that someone just threw together and delivered to you, I mean, what are they really doing? It's not really that valuable. I've actually,
Not
yeah, go ahead.
to say not on the whole, the holistic side of it, right? Not on the whole aspect of what your goal for longevity. And yeah, that's definitely not, So, a lot of processed, pre-cooked stuff full of horrible ingredients, like you're saying, you can lose a little bit of weight, but what is your goal? What is your long-term goal? And I would think more than ever, you start hearing more now about longevity, and it's ultimately that, like Jarek preaches, 1% better, right? And it's just keep tweaking, and just that's going to give you that success in the long run by creating these different habits. But ultimately, like Barbara said, you kind of you learn and you evolve, and we realize as we keep going, like what we need to learn. When we learn something new, we leave it out our product, and it's every day we're hearing about this is bad for you, and now the mainstream media is kind of picking up on it, which we knew all along, but just kind of just evolving and just keep taking those processed ingredients out, harmful ingredients, is kind of, yeah, that's the ultimate goal, and just 1% better.
Well, with y'all's background and y'all's experience, so Barbara competed at a very high level, and Barbara's got health coaching, several coaching certifications, and then running the business for 14 years, always being healthy and just kind of being in that environment. What is something that you can see from that experience that like maybe most people don't get a chance to really see or feel or know?
Um, it's very, very simple, but it seems like it's not. And it's really just about consistently making an effort to prioritize your wellness. I think that's where most people struggle is that they think it's like this all or nothing approach. And that's just not the way life is. When you have businesses and careers and kids and life, and you have, things that happen in your life, it's not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to get the workout in. You're not always going to eat the perfect meal. But if every day there's a little small effort, and if you feel yourself kind of get off track, then you refocus and just make that a priority. That's where the magic happens over time. And I every time I post on Instagram, if I've completed a workout, I'm like, I deposited money in my health bank this morning, or made a deposit in my health bank. And that's really what it's like. It's like, if you relate it to financials, it's just like putting money in the bank that's constantly growing interest. If you're doing that every single day. So, and if you're not doing it every day, it's every other day, or it's twice a week, or it's a 5-minute workout, or a 10-minute workout here, or you're eating more greens today, or dropping spinach in your smoothie, little small things that build up over time. It really is what makes the difference. That's the biggest takeaway that I have seen over the years of being in the health and wellness industry is that is the magic. That is the key.
What kind of like
Mindset.
what so doing the from just getting people on clean food even into y'all do a 10-day detox. Can you tell us like what happens to somebody and why is what happening? What's going on with a 10-day detox?
Yeah, the 10-day detox is definitely a big game changer for people because most people, and even like really myself before we did the 10-day, since Dana and I did the 10-day detox together, don't go a single day without eating processed food. Not necessarily fast food. Like when we talk about processed food, it's not like fast food, but even like crackers, or you got your little kids snacks in the pantry, or cheese, or just processed food. You're rarely do you go even a day without eating something processed. So the detox takes people from their normal lifestyle, and we basically provide them with 10 days of all anti-inflammatory meals that are free of all the big culprits of inflammation: gluten, dairy, soy, and wheat, refined sugar, processed ingredients. So we take them on this journey of 10 days and we incorporate detox supplements to help remove toxins from the body because in the world that we live in, we're exposed to, I think, I don't know, something like 7 billion toxins a year, just in like normal living, right? So those begin to build up in the system and can cause inflammation and lead to all kind of things if left unaddressed. So that 10 days really takes people on this journey of like removing all that stuff from the body. And, you just feel so much better once you've completed that 10 days and really just seeing what it feels like to be without processed ingredients. It's an eye-opening experience. I know Dean was like not a fish eater before, and then he was like started eating fish after. So it's a lot of fish, a lot of wild caught fish on the detox.
So
Yeah,
Dean,
and
well, go ahead, Dean.
I was going to say, I think one of the biggest things in that 10 days is what I've noticed in a lot of people is the two things, the mindset, their mindset shift, kind of what Barbara's saying, being aware, and awareness is the other part, right? Being aware that the stuff that we're eating, that we take for granted, the cheese, the crackers, or any of these little snack bars that read healthy and they're organic, but really being aware of like what that's doing to your body. Um, and then the mindset shift is like, okay, I can eat this and it does taste good and I don't need the chips and I feel like I'm starting this journey, and I think that's one of the biggest things that this 10 days does is it's a jolt to shift your mindset. And we've seen a lot of people come out of it who before were like, hey, this doesn't fit what I do. I'm always on the road. I take clients out. We go out to eat. We don't have time to cook. All the excuses. And once they're in that 10th day after, you can just see, like I said, their awareness has expanded and their mindset is like, no, 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 I can do this. I do feel better. And this, little tweaks just by cutting one thing out, like I said, at 1%, they're more willing to do it. Which all is kind of triggered because how they start feeling. They thought they felt good before, but once 10 days in, they say, no, 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 I sleep better. I feel better. I have more energy. I don't have any stomach issues and these things that we just over time equate to getting older or just being busy. They really start seeing like, hey, wait, no, this is directly related to the food that I'm putting in my mouth.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge gap between like what level of focus mentally people are like operating on and then like what they could be operating on. And I think that 10 days, it gives them a sneak peek into like, oh, wow. This diet I'm currently eating like really was slowing me down. It really was holding me back. And you have to experience it to really feel it and know like what your actually potential, like what is your potential? Like how good could you feel? And just to get a
Mm,
glimpse of that. And detox is like a buzzword that I'm sure there's a lot of really dumb, really stupid detoxes. But
mm,
y'all's is like it's nutrient dense. It's got enough food. Like you're not starving. It tastes good.
Yeah.
It's delicious. You just are cutting out all the crap and getting in all the good stuff. Done for you.
Yeah. I reinforce this to anybody that's doing the detox that we need you to eat because we need the liver to do its job, and food stimulates the liver to do its job. So eating is like a crucial component of the detox and eating enough. And what we've seen is when people don't, if they'll skip the meals or they're trying to do this like, cut back on food calories or whatever, they start to feel really, really bad. So part of that 10 days is eating enough. And it's not a fad. It's not a juice cleanse. It's not there's so many things, right? But it's really truly just eating whole foods. And you'll see a lot of like Mark Hyman talks about doing a 10-day reset without refined sugar and processed ingredients um and what that does for the body and the brain. And it's legit. I mean, it's not a gimmick by any means. And like again, there's nothing fancy about it. It's literally just like, hey, we're taking all the processed stuff out of your diet and we're going to give you real food, like real quality food for 10 days. And that's how we really should be eating all the time. Um, but it really is. It is an eye opener because of that, exactly what you just said. You start to see how much of an edge, and anybody in business that's listening, like I would say do this for your, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your business because you'll see what an edge you have on the rest of the world if you cut out alcohol. I know that's a real big one for people that they don't, nobody wants to hear that. Alcohol and processed ingredients and see the difference and change.
And caffeine, which
Oh,
uh,
don't talk about my coffee.
but caffeine too, which and we've had some good friends of ours that have done a detox. They were scared to do it, and they did it. Now they've done it 3 times or so. But they're like, well, I don't want to give up my caffeine. I'm not going to have energy throughout the day. All the other beliefs that are attached to that. But once in it, they realize, no, no, no. I do. Once they get past the part of like, the I guess what would you call that? The body craving it or needing it, the headaches or whatever that might come along with that. Once they get past that, they're all like, "No, I feel great. I don't need caffeine. I don't need that to get through my day because you're not getting hit with these insulin spikes and everything else after you eat this crappy food that's making you sluggish. Then you just offset it by coffee. So it's again that goes back into the awareness of like, no, no, I really don't need this because I'm not a caffeine person. I believe in water and breathing exercises will give you all the energy you need, right? So it's just so many people just have that belief where they don't need that. But caffeine is the big one. That's what we hear a lot. People don't want to give up the alcohol or the caffeine, but they realize like, and it's such a small amount of time. 10 days is, think about that. That's 2 business weeks or a half, 1.5 real regular weeks of your life. And if you could feel that good in 10 days, just think if you did it for a month. Think if you did it for 2 months, 3 months. It's exponentially, it's just compounding is amazing. So
Yeah, compounding. That's the word I was looking for earlier.
yeah,
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, just getting the belief and having the experience shifts the way they're going to approach eating and consuming whatever moving forward.
Yes.
Um, so here's a random question. So that it almost seems unconventional, but like the detox is like eating like the natural environment, the natural foods the body was made to eat. So like it's actually totally normal, but it just seems unconventional because our environment is so crazy. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully RFK gets in there and changes some things with food regulations. But
Hell
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
the question I have though, is there anything, I mean, and you can go back to when you were competing, is there anything unconventional or any coaching exercises that you guys have used on yourself or with clients that yielded like unexpected yet remarkable results?
I think one of the biggest ones I've used in coaching and also with myself is which you have one really good one that we just discovered the other day on our call with the rules. But one thing I've used on clients and also notice now that I teach it to clients, I notice it with myself is limiting beliefs. That's a that's a huge one. Man, those limiting beliefs will really jack you up big time because you just create this story of like who you think you are and who and how it's supposed to be for yourself, and it's all like when you really break it down, it's actual bull that you've been like feeding yourself. And so really like I make clients list them out. I make them figure out where did that come from? Like where did that start? And they immediately like they notice it. The shift is so profound when you see it on paper, when you realize it, you're like, that is just a story that I have told myself for so long that now I truly believe this is who I am. And maybe that's like unconventional for people because they just think it's like woo woo, like, oh, limiting beliefs. But that is probably the first step to anybody's journey is identifying limiting beliefs and stories, and really figuring out you can't change them immediately. It takes work and a lot of work, constant work and effort to change that paradigm and that story. But identifying it is a big step and really understanding, oh, you know what, where this came from. My parents told me, like one of the big ones that a lot of people have with food, right, is when children are little, their parents may have told them, you need to finish your plate. You can't get up from the table unless you finish your plate. You need to eat everything on your plate. And so as adults, what do? We overeat because that's what our parents told us to do, right? And we were going to be punished if we didn't. And so really seeing that and making that connection and saying, you know what, that's that's not real, and that shouldn't have been how it is, and that's how it was, but I don't need to do that now. Just little things like that, and maybe not conventional for everyone, but it's a big one.
I remember
Mm.
about 15 years ago, I was having really bad health problems, and I was just reading every book and trying every diet. And I picked up Paul Chek's book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And it's really clear. I think it's really right. And I think it was way ahead of its time. But it just says eat clean food, drink clean water, get sleep, manage your stress. It's all these fundamental things. But I remember reading it, and I was working inside of a hospital, and I was educated by school about health, which I don't think was all that great of information. And and I remember reading that book saying, like, I could never eat like this. Like, this is way too strict. Like, how would I even do this? And it seems so impossible. And now I'd open that book and be like, yeah, of course. And I pretty much have incorporated all these habits and tools and skill sets from cooking to shopping to knowing what to buy to all that. I now that's incorporated into my life completely. But I remember thinking like and believing like, wow, this is too crazy. I can never do that. And it's a process.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. It's definitely a process. And it's so much of it is just like, you're right. It's what we've been told, and what we've been taught or not taught, that kind of shapes our reality of who we are as adults and the decisions that we make with our health. Um, and so it takes a lot of courage and a lot of discipline and a lot of like, compassion for ourselves to look within and identify what's holding us back and work towards improving and changing that story.
So identifying the limiting beliefs first. So if you're listening, what are your limiting beliefs? What do you believe that you can or can't do or should or shouldn't be doing? Think about that, question that. I want to ask you guys about, we were just talking about before the podcast, we were talking about couples working together. So we're talking about how like there's levels to this. Like it's one thing to be able to like be in a healthy relationship and make it work. That's its own challenge. It's a whole nother challenge. I've got one child, and that's added stress and work and time and energy and a lot of love, but it's challenging. And now y'all have got two kids, and they're young, and on top of that, now you run a business together. So anyone that's in that situation, or maybe there's skill sets or things that y'all have learned, but what are one or two things that could help somebody in that situation that y'all have learned or y'all do, or what comes up there?
I think for me, from my perspective, the biggest insight that I was ever given was making sure that you and your partner um, have certain things set up, right? So know when you're wearing certain hats. All right. So when you're coming from a place of, hey, I'm wearing business owner to business owner hat versus husband to wife, having wearing those hats, and then being able to identify that, speak about it openly, and know that when the business hat's on, it's the business hat. It doesn't, roll over into personal, which is a huge challenge. But I think that's super, super important. I say that's one of the biggest things. And then for me, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day challenges. Especially, I was just telling Barbara, and now we have three separate businesses. Um, and I was just thinking, like, with the two kids and all, and even before, I was like, before we had these other two businesses, I thought we were busy, right? So it's not now like you find a way to fit it all in, but
That's what people who don't have kids and they have kids say. They're like, we thought we were so busy.
and then you have
And then
children.
you have a kid and you're like, wait, what was I really doing? Like, I wasn't really doing anything but just
Yeah,
whatever the hell I wanted to do. But then, you have a kid. It's the same thing with businesses. It's like, oh, we thought we were so swamped, two kids in a business, and then we open up another business and then another business. And then we're like, oh, yeah, well, we thought we were busy, but we really weren't.
yeah, and it's just prioritizing what you're doing. But what's helpful for me is definitely always get caught up in what's wrong and what's just now we had a couple scenarios that happened. You can get caught up in that, but I always try to shift to what I'm grateful for. And that also rolls into when people ask about Barbara and I's relationship when we work and the challenge that come along with it. Yeah, there are, but for me, I always try to resort back to I'm grateful that I get to work with Barbara. We might not always see eye to eye, and there might be challenges, but at the end of the day, I get to spend a lot of time with Barbara. So just finding things I'm grateful for is super helpful. And then, like I said, the hats is super important. And then recognizing these rules that we put in place that the other might not know about, right? That was another moment I had with Jarek the other day. He mentioned he just opened my eyes to these rules that I'm creating that Barbara might not know even exist. But in my head, these rules are super important. So I think that's important in business and your personal life and friendships, but also in this scenario, working so closely with my spouse, it's so important to talk about the rules that need to be in place for business, personal, and just in general, right? Those are kind of the things that I find help navigate through these times.
Well, so more specifically, like when you're having a business meeting and you're making business decisions, like don't flirt with me. Like we're doing business right now.
Right,
And
right, right, right.
and when we're flirting and we're being playful, don't bring up business, you know? Or
That is the harder part. That is the hardest part. I think like any couple in business, that's the hard part. Is like, the being professional together, that is no problem, right? But it's also like remembering to not be professional with each other all the time and be a married couple. That's the challenge because business just, it's like it infiltrates every single second of your life when you're a business owner. So creating boundaries, and listen, we are not by any means good, great, or perfect at this. Like we're not. We can speak on it because we live it, but we have not mastered it at all. And we still are, it's still a challenge for him and I. And I think like for me, one of the biggest things is just recognizing that this is just a chapter. This
mm,
is just a small space in time. It's temporary. It's not forever. And so like when it feels really heavy and like you're like, God, my marriage is not, this is not how I expected it to be. And I got all these responsibilities and the kids are like, one of them sick and it is just a small space in time to like really just be like, okay, you know what? This is just a chapter. This is not forever. What is the good in it? What's the thing that I'm grateful for about this? And how can I shift my focus onto a more positive way of thinking? Like, and it's literally repeating that exercise over and over and over again. And like there's definitely some freaking hard days, no doubt. And being in business together and married and trying to keep your marriage alive and fresh and fun, it's a freaking challenge. But we have a lot of respect for each other and we do love each other so much. And so at the end of the day, like no matter what, you know, we're like, ah, today sucked, but I still love you and thank you for, being this person that is I can count on, you know.
I was
Now you
Love you, babe.
now, now when you said that about with flirting and all, it made me think of a time that, and it's easier, I guess, for men, women, I don't know, but I remember a time where it might have been something stressful or something going on. Maybe we didn't see eye to eye or something. We had an argument. A little while later, I come back in the office, and then I was being playful with Barbara or something. She looks at me and she's like, "Are you flirting with me?" And I felt like, oh my, did I do something wrong? Like HR is gonna be called on me, you know? But when you said that, it sparked that. It sparked that. It's like it's so true. Yeah,
well, maybe sometimes you want to break the pattern, it could be a
yeah,
useful
absolutely. Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah.
I
it
was
was funny.
I have a client that I work with, and she's her kids are older now. So I was asking her, I was like, so what was like the thick of it, the hardest days? So she had three boys, and they were like, age 1, 4, and 6 at one time. She was like, that's when it was like peak stress, and like, it was really hard. And then she says this, she says, but I would trade anything to go back to those days right now. And I'm like, wow.
Wow.
And over and again, you hear every parent when you have a kid will tell you, oh, they grow up so quick, enjoy every moment, and we're
Yeah.
always working to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about that every time I go to get in our shower, go into a walk-in shower, and I'm like stepping over Barbies, and I have to kick them out the way. And it used to frustrate me a little bit, but now I'm like, I just embrace it. I'm like, man, how awesome is it? That my two girls they take over the whole house, but and just it brings me back to that moment, like recognizing it, being present, and finding gratitude and stepping on Barbies.
They're home, but they're home. They're
Yeah,
home.
they're
They're like
home.
all we're all under one roof. We're
Yeah.
home together. And that's a good feeling that like, I don't know. It's so fleeting, but um
But I've seen the look on your face, and when I was doing the morning the workouts, and your son will walk in, and it just lights you up, you know what I mean? And it's these moments, it's just, and I know that I could tell in that moment that you truly, no matter what, obviously you love your son and all, you're so grateful for that. And I'm speaking for you, but I think that it seems like in those very small moments that you find the gratitude in it, and you're super grateful and present. So but there's been a couple of times when I see him pop in on a Zoom, and it's just I see you light up. So it's how awesome of a feeling it is. So it's great. And I like to think, oh, this is gonna be forever, but it is on the grand scheme of things such a small period. So
yeah.
So we got different sectors here. We've got business, we've got parenting, we've got relationships, we've got our health. Is there anything that you guys have changed your mind about recently in the last year or just recently? Was it something that you were like, you know what, I used to think this, but you know what, now I think this, and it could be from anywhere.
Mm.
I tell you, from me, I used to have this belief where I'd have to go to the gym and get a 2 hour workout in, or it didn't count, right? Which totally, uh, you busted that myth, right? Just by I was doing 15-minute workouts with you, and I could see the difference. But that was the biggest thing that I've changed, and just these getting in these little micro sessions, even throughout the day. And I think some people, I can't think of her name, that she calls it exercise snacks.
Mm.
For me, with the limited availability right now I have, it's that's where I had a shift, because I would always start out like, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna work out, get a drive there. By the time you're done, it's 2 hours, and then I go once, and then I don't, something happens, and it would just fall off. And I was like, well, I'll just start back next week. And you get busy and busy, but just that's the biggest change for me with exercise and even breathing techniques. Since not all, you can't always do a 20-minute, 30-minute breathing exercise, but you could sneak in a 5 minute. That's my biggest moment, but the biggest change in my life is that these little micro sessions compound, right? So yeah, that's
And
my 2 cents on that.
that's why I'm a big fan of working out at home. That's why I have the program I have. Because if you're going to drive to the gym, you don't want to do a 10-minute workout. Like I'm already here, I already drove here. I feel like I should spend more time here since I spent the time to drive here and I'm paying for this membership. But with the
Yeah.
at-home workouts, we do them at home in the morning and it's log in, log out, and it only consumes half an hour of your day. We do it on the front end so people get amped up for the day.
No, I definitely. I'm telling you that. What was it? That small time I worked out with you on that in that morning. It opened my eyes to it. It truly did. So, but yeah, you're right. It's just awareness, right?
Yeah.
Mindset and awareness.
We were talking about limiting beliefs that hold people back and how it doesn't have to be a 2-hour workout. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's not that strict. Um, is it that difficult to eat healthy? Is it do you have to be all or nothing? And like where can people kind of start to chip away at getting better at their health?
Yeah, well, I think part of the issue is that the media and what you see on the internet has made it so confusing
Mm,
and complicated for people that they do not even know what to eat. They're like, okay, I'm eating oatmeal for breakfast. Then you got a doctor on Instagram saying oatmeal is the worst thing that you can put in your body. It ruins your digestive tract. And then you're like, oh, well, crap, I've been eating oatmeal for breakfast every morning. Like people are so confused. And it's for me, I have even been in times where I'm like, okay, like really, what are we supposed to eat, guys? We're supposed to eat ice on a plate, So the biggest thing that I can tell people is it's the processed ingredients. And so people are like, okay, well, what does that even mean? What's considered processed, right? So when you're grocery shopping and you're buying stuff anywhere in the middle section of the grocery store, crackers, etc., it's not necessarily cutting all that stuff out, but the main thing I tell people to look for is added sugar and also refined oil. So if you're looking at anything, there's a couple big things that we can look for immediately. It's processed sugar, high fructose corn syrup, which should be banned out of all foods, and soybean oil slash really canola oils, not great either. But if you see soybean oil in anything, that's the most inflammatory oil.
Really?
That's causing a lot of issues for people. Yes, ton of inflammation. So anything that has soybean oil in it, like you need to remove that from your pantry and your home immediately. Same thing with high fructose corn syrup. So those are three big ones that people can start with. So, and simply just looking at the label. I mean, and look, people get in their routines of what they buy. I rarely see people in the grocery store reading labels. I don't know. I definitely look, but really just take a second, look at what the ingredients that are in your what you're buying. If the ingredient list is this long, there's a high probability that that food is not good for you. So you want to start looking for ingredients and shopping for ingredients that are very simple. So you want, maybe 3 to 4 ingredients if it's something in the middle section of the grocery store. Adding more whole foods is always your best plan of action. Um, Really staying away from processed ingredients, deli meats, cheese. Not that you can never eat cheese. That's not the thing, but just really trying to be mindful about the processed ingredients that you are cooking and increasing your whole foods. Even, brown rice, or like you were saying, basmati. I love basmati rice or jasmine rice. Um, pastas, I think home cooked meals, even cooking a meal at home. There's a act of love and there's a part of that that goes into actually cooking a meal that's so beneficial for you as a person cooking it, but also for the people that you're feeding. And there's this act of connection that releases serotonin and decreases inflammation. And so home cooked meals are so great, and you're controlling everything that's going into the food. Or you don't want to home cook, or you don't like to cook, you can use a service like ours, Clean Creations, of course. But shop in the perimeter of the grocery store and increasing your vegetable intake, and more color on the plate. The more color you can put on the plate, the better. So it doesn't have to be complicated. And personally, like if it's oatmeal, great. You know what I'm saying? Like that's better than cereal, or refined cereal. So I think people get overwhelmed and then they just don't do anything. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna keep eating what I'm eating. So another thing I've noticed too, and I see this with our parents, is they're like, well, we fed this to y'all, or we've been eating this for years, and I've been doing this since whatever. What people have to remember is that the rules have changed.
Yeah.
The name of the game has changed. So whatever you were eating 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, is not the same food that you're eating now, because they've become more toxic and more ridden with inflammatory ingredients than they ever have been. So
Chemical.
just know, like, you can't go by what you fed your grandkids or what you were eating 10 to 20 years ago. And it's not done by accident. It's done on purpose to make these foods highly addictive. Um, so just know it's done by design. And that's another reason why people need to really, if there was ever a time to do it, it's now, to advocate for their wellness and start getting curious and asking questions about what is going in your food. And if we all as a whole stop eating this junk that they're putting in our food, they will have no choice but to change, because they will not be a profitable business anymore. So we need to stop being a product and letting them, keep Americans sick. And that's really where we are. So
One
if
thing that
anybody's listening, that's my rant for the day.
Well, one thing that frustrates me is going out to eat at almost any restaurant. The oils in the meats and the proteins, I always can feel the inflammation. So it's like, all
Yeah.
right, I have to eat at home all the time, and I'm like, all right, if you need any good like how to cook at home, you might want to check out Barbara's Instagram. She's got a lot of good stuff going on there, and it's fun. The kids are in there too. And any anything else on that before we move on here?
My thing is, like Barbara talked about, you know, so say you still want to eat bread. There's not all bread is created equally, right? So
Right.
I give you an example. My daughter was sick. My mom says, "Hey, I need to get y'all some bunny bread." I'm like, "No, you don't." Well, she doesn't like the bread you guys have. Okay, don't send bunny bread home with my child for one. If she wants white bread, there's limited ingredient sourdough breads, organic breads that still are that white bread, but it's not nowhere near the same as a piece of damn bunny bread, right? So it's just
Well,
if you
hold on,
want bread,
hold on. It's funny you mentioned Bunny Bread. My grandfather was the CEO of Bunny Bread for many years. I was found it pretty ironic.
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Well, one we can switch it. You can edit it to Wonder Bread. Let's start. We can
sorry,
shift,
buddy Brad.
Hey,
but it's just that scenario, right?
I've
Just like
always felt
okay, cool.
conflicted.
Yeah, like it, yeah.
It's just like okay, if you even if you just want to take an easy step, get rid of all the soft drinks. Start with there, right? And if you
Yeah.
want to go from a soft drink, drink a tea, right? Or if you want to eat bread, eat a limited ingredient bread that you'll know because it's going to go bad in a couple days versus stuff. So you can still just make little changes at first, kind of bouncing off of what you guys were saying. It's just like you can still, if it's the initial step, it's just 1%. You're making a 1% change for the better, and it's going to compound. For you, Matt, I know that when you first read that book, you're like, I can't do this, and it wasn't like the next day. You automatically went to now. I'm doing much more than this book, and it just that's life. It's progression, right? And I think as long as somebody just starts that journey, you know, that's the goal. Just starting that journey and just being mindful of what's in the product.
Totally. Don't fall for all the stuff, and that's the other thing. On the same note of like everything being confusing, right? Like these companies that put this food out, they're freaking brilliant marketing strategists, right? So you got all these words on your packaging, like all natural, low calorie, you know, it's
Oh,
it is meant
when they put gluten free on like meat or something, it's like that really cracks me.
right,
Right.
gluten free. I mean, that's why you can't go by that. Can't look at
Yeah.
that.
No added sugar is a big one.
My mom is false for all good packaging. My mom's soul. It says all natural on it. Well, it's all natural. I'm like, Mom, turn this thing around and read the ingredients. Which I mean, bless her. She does a good job of staying healthy, but um, that marketing it'll get you every time. So you just have to really just be mindful and just flip that packaging around and take a look at the list of ingredients that are in there. Red dyes, you see dyes in there, soybean oil, high fructose corn syrup. Chances are it's not a good product to be consuming or feeding your kids. So
Yeah. So thinking back the last 14, 10, 5 years, you guys, y'all have found success in life. You're healthy people. You have a good marriage. You have a growth mindset. You have a growing business. You'll spend so much time with the kids. I would consider that to be extremely successful. I think most people are probably dropping the ball in one of those sectors. And I guess the question is, most people that have found this sort of success in life, they had to break through something that was really frustrating, and eventually they had to keep fighting and keep breaking through. Um, so, what comes to mind? What was one of the harder things or harder situations y'all had to break through, and how'd you do it?
I think
oh, how
what
much time do we have?
yeah, I think it's so
There's been so many.
but I think I think like I can think on all of those different aspects of life. You could think on all of at least I can think on scenarios. The simplest answer to all of it is not giving up and finding something to be grateful for. And then like just not having to be perfect at it. I'm good at stacking a lot of stuff on my plate and I want to do this. I have all these intentions, but it's just, and then I drop the ball, but just picking it back up, keep moving forward. I know it sounds kind of lame and cliche, but it's like, for me, it's finding something to be grateful for in any of those scenarios and just not giving up. Just keep pushing and not necessarily knowing the answer, but having some sort of goal is number one. And all of those different departments or categories or whatever you want to call it, having some sort of goal, not knowing how you're going to get to it, and just not giving up and finding gratitude, no matter how big or small, that has changed my life. Finding something to be grateful for.
Mm, yeah. I mean, I can think of a really big one. We
Oh, but do you have a good story?
probably, yeah, got a good story. Got a good one. I mean, it's a pretty in-depth story, but I'll give you the cliff notes on it. Right after COVID, we decided to open up another location in Baton Rouge. And at the time that we decided to do that, I got pregnant. So we were like, we were doing really well with Clean Creations. COVID helped us because a lot of people weren't grocery shopping. They didn't want to go to the stores, so they were getting food delivered. Delivery of food was becoming a lot more mainstream where it really wasn't before. Um, and so it helped our business actually. And people also were eating better because they wanted to stay healthy. So we decided to open up the second location because we were like, okay, we're doing good. The second location is going to obviously do great.
Mm.
And I was pregnant. And when we opened up that store, I had just had our second child and we bombed. Like we lost money literally every single day we were open there. And going through that and just seeing just money just hemorrhage out of our lives was like, it was like watching a train wreck that you could not stop.
Wow.
And having a new baby, and that goes back to like being married in business and going through all these things. It was probably
Well,
like,
speaking about hemorrhage, like the actual being in a hospital, what Barbara left out, she was in a hospital for 50 days before this, in the process of opening up. We had a 3-year-old at the time that has now been separated. Barbara's in hospitals during COVID, so really no visitation. So we have Clean Creations. We're trying to bring. Barbara had a fight to get some sort of visitation, so luckily she was able to. I don't know how she did it, but we had like an hour of visitation. So running Clean Creations, picking up my daughter, bringing her to see Barbara, fighting a chest. That's a 3-hour deal while building
Baton Rouge
Baton
out.
Rouge. And then Barbara, after having a baby, after 50 days, almost dying, but a bunch of blood transfusions, the whole deal. So you add that mental aspect on top of the scenario she's describing.
Yeah, so I mean, on the personal side, we were like, it was a really rough time because just going through that whole being in the hospital for that long, super high risk pregnancy, and then nearly dying upon delivery, and like just coming out of that, and then we have this like new location, right, that we got to get open, and it's not local, it's in Baton Rouge, right, an hour and a half away, and it just we could never pick up traction there, and it was just brutal. I mean, every single day of that was brutal, and we ultimately decided to close it. And I mean, it shook us down to the core. And going through that,
Still affecting us.
it's still literally
3 years later.
3 years later, it's still affecting us to this day.
Financially, yes.
Financially, I mean, it was a bold move, and we took our shot and we whiffed. Which the thing that I can say on that is what it forced us to do was to find some solution to pivot into something else. And then what happened was we got this insane opportunity to open up Wildflower Kitchen in Tulane. And because Baton Rouge was doing so poorly, I was racking my brain every night trying to figure out, okay, what the hell are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to change this? Like, how are we going to save this? And it was affecting our Clean Creations existing business, right? And so I started conjuring up this idea of having this business called Wildflower Kitchen. and I had come up with the branding for it, and I really had no idea what we were going to do with that. I really didn't. I didn't know where that was coming from. I was just like, this could be something like salads and wraps and grain bowls. So, long story short, we get this opportunity to open up a Clean Creations in Tulane. We bring Tulane to the Baton Rouge store, which was good for us because the Baton Rouge store was done very well. I mean, it was decked out, it looked really beautiful, looked very professional. They walked in and they were like, okay, these people mean business, right? So it gave us a really good look. So they come in, they loved the product, but they didn't want to call it Clean Creations. So they're like, that's just not, I don't know if that's it. I said, well, I've been working on this other brand called Wildflower Kitchen, and I had the branding and the logo and all this, everything. I had it all done. And I presented it to them, and they were like, yep, that's it. We love that. We love this. And that's how Wildflower Kitchen came to be. And I think without Baton Rouge, and you have to really believe wholeheartedly and have this like insane faith that it's just like all working out. Dean sent me this Neville Goddard recording of everything's always working out for you. And it's like, it's been my mantra. And if it just worked out the way it needed to. But man, it was serious. It still is like Dean said, it's still not like, woo, we made it, but just forcing yourself to pivot and think of something else and just never give up. Never give up. You just can't. There's no plan B. This is it. We're in it. So we got to just move forward and not dwell on like, yeah, we made that mistake. Yeah, we screwed up. Oh well, like we got to just keep forging ahead. And that's the only way. You just have to have that pig-headed stubbornness, that mentality.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, we're not talking like a little mistake. It was a mistake which we know that we shouldn't have gone into, but it was all or nothing, and we had nothing, and then we're scratching and clawing right now to come out of that. So this wasn't just a small financial
No, it wasn't.
move.
It was big.
This is very, very, very big. So, and just like I said, that's what keep moving and find stuff to be grateful for.
Yeah,
It's
and
what's pushing through that.
those hard times really make tough people. Who would y'all be now if you hadn't gone through that insane situation? It's like, gosh, you're probably like so much more equipped to handle like your capacity now to manage challenging, difficult situations has expanded to be so big. That probably gives you the confidence to like know like what you actually are capable of. But
Yeah,
man,
and it also gives you the ability to respond instead of react, right? It used to be like react to everything, react. Now it's I know my muscles as far as being able to respond and still be calm in situations has definitely grown, which is which is huge. Yeah, no, you're right though. What would we be like, or what would it be like, or what would our relationship be like, or what would our habits be? And it's just
Is
there's
it
been
is it
times
wrong that I like kind of wish I would know?
you
I
didn't know.
wouldn't
Yeah,
mind knowing what we were like, what we would be like without that big ass mistake we made.
yeah. What would
I don't
be?
know. It's
Well,
fine.
yeah,
It's
and
fine.
financially we've been in a better spot, but who knows if any, So, and I remember Barbara, there was scenarios that popped up after, and Barbara was like, you know what? To your point, like, you know what? I was in a hospital for 50 days, didn't really get to see my kid, didn't get to see anybody. I was by myself and I almost died. I can handle this. Like, that was her thought process for a long time. And just going back to that, like, you know what? This scenario, you put it in perspective, it seems like a big deal in a moment, but in a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, it's nothing. And just, I think that's part of what came out of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
wow, that sounds like a lot. I'm sorry you guys had to go through that. It sounds really hard.
It does, but in comparison to what the majority of the world is going through,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Good point.
please, like people would kill to have our problems.
Yeah.
People would die to have the problems that the problems that we have.
Yeah.
And it's just you got to put that into perspective.
Right.
Like we have two healthy kids, we're healthy. what, so what? We'll figure it out. We'll find a way to change it. And if it's money, like you can't let money be your biggest problem, and then your biggest worry and your biggest concern. Like, yeah, does having a lot of money make things a little more comfortable? Sure, absolutely. But it's not the end of the world and it can be solved. I think your health is your greatest gift and your most prized possession, and especially having healthy kids.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah, and how would
that's
you
the that's the trick.
how would you have survived that situation had you not had great health in the first place?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's my
completely.
trick. I mean, that's my trick. I always resort back to, oh, this happened. You know what? Take a deep breath, breathe through it, think about it. I'm healthy, my family's healthy. It's fine. That's an easy one to go back to. Like finding gratitude. It's just so simple. Like my kids are healthy, you
Yeah.
know. Can't pay this bill. They got to worry about this, or this van just got wrecked, or you got to what a crazy amount of money. My kids are healthy and I'm healthy. Like, okay, we'll get through it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade it. So it's like you'll get through it. That's just the easy trick for me. It just always brings my mind back to gratitude.
And I think, I have a pretty strong faith. I think believing in God and like knowing He's working through us and like for us in our lives every single day, you know, I think what could go wrong if you just have that unwavering faith. And I think giving God the glory and saying this is all, we have all this because of you, and grateful for that in our lives. So I think that's helped me at many, many days, every day.
Couldn't agree more. Um, so one question I had on here I wanted to ask y'all, and then I want to sort of talk about all the reasons I like your business. Um, I remember going to school, and I had a minor in nutrition. So I'm just a minor in nutrition here with a bachelor's degree from LSU. And I remember like seeing like one example is like the food pyramid. Is there is there any type of like traditional belief or something you were taught in school that like you were taught this, we were taught this, but it's simply wrong? And based off our experience, it's just simply wrong. Like what comes up when I ask you that?
I can't even remember really the food pyramid being taught in school. Maybe it was. Do
It's
you remember?
shown. Yeah, I remember it's shown. I don't remember when, but I do recall. I'm a product of a public school education, so and you only get so much with that,
Hey,
right?
don't
So
knock
it's
on public school. Public school can be good,
well
depends
here,
on.
public school here is not ideal, but I do remember it. I do remember it, and I don't know. I don't know what's right or wrong. I don't know if you could say what's right or wrong because it's different for everyone, other than the stuff we know, right? You shouldn't eat. I remember it just made me think of the movie Elf when Will Ferrell's like the different food
Oh, the pyramid is like
pyramid.
maple syrup.
Yeah, sugar, maple syrup, gumdrops or whatever. But
One thing I think that's taught a lot, even as adults, is everything is okay in moderation. And the problem with that theory and teaching is that we're not living in a moderation type of world as in America, because everything is so riddled with toxins, pesticides, glyphosate, um, highly inflammatory ingredients, that even when you think you're doing stuff in moderation, and like you have to really ask yourself, is it okay ever really to, in moderation, poison myself with all that? Not really. So it's like that's something that you hear a lot. Like everything's okay in moderation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like we gotta we have to do better for ourselves than that, you know? I think that yes, balance is important in lifestyle, but this theory of like, okay, it's okay to have, you know, Oreos in moderation. I don't know. I don't know if I really believe by that anymore.
Yeah, and you're talking about the addiction and how it can be addictive. So, like, is it going to be moderate? Like, is it even pot? Like, do you know anybody that can drink one cup of coffee a week? I've tried it several
yeah,
Not
times.
me.
It didn't never work.
No, I mean, I love coffee. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really think coffee's bad. I think if you're gonna drink coffee, you really should source it organically because there's so many pesticides and toxins in coffee, like a lot.
Mm.
So the reason why we pulled coffee out of the detox is because caffeine inhibits your detox pathways. So
Oh,
if you're trying to detoxify in any regard, like you were telling me you do your 3 day, then you really should pull caffeine out because it does inhibit detox pathways a
really?
good bit. So yeah.
Which coffee brand do you like that's clean?
Bulletproof brands
Yeah.
is clean, 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 clean. That's a really good one. I'm trying to think of a couple other ones. There's a few. I'll pull them up and I'll send them to you, but really just mainly making sure that it's organic is very important for your tea and your coffee. And we started doing that at Clean Creations with our rice and our pastas, is sourcing them organically, and our oats, because of glyphosate being so, prominent in those foods.
And real
Coffee,
quick,
coffee
for
definitely one of them.
those that don't know what glyphosate is, can you kind of tell them what glyphosate is? I mean, I can feel it when I eat it.
It's a pesticide, you know,
Yeah, it's
pesticide.
a pesticide that they spray on crops so that like bugs don't get to the crops, so it kills them.
Right.
But it's this like layer of basically poison that you would spray to kill your weeds that is now being sprayed all over the food that a lot of food that we're eating, mostly a lot of the wheat and probably the corn,
Grains, yeah.
all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and even organic certifications are sometimes a little bit, you know, there's loopholes and there's workarounds and people can call stuff organic and it still has some toxins in it. But if you're just trying to people are just trying to do the best that they can, clearly. But I tell people really clean 15 and the dirty dozen. So, especially with fruit, if it's got a thin skin, berries, strawberries, raspberries, then you want to source that organically. If it has a thicker skin, like avocados, pineapples, cantaloupes, melons, sweet potatoes, that can all be sourced conventionally. So, not everything that you buy has to be organic. But if you go online, and I think the ewglist.org lists the list, clean 15 and dirty dozen, they update it every single year. To list like what foods really should be purchased organically and what foods are okay to source conventionally.
Gosh, what was that resource, that website?
I want to say ewg.org has it listed, but if you just Google clean 15 dirty dozen, you'll see a list. You'll see the list pop up.
Yeah, so something like bananas or avocados or pineapples, where like maybe the outside skin's being sprayed, the inside's not affected nearly as much, and that's
Right.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about clean creations, guys, let this be your idea to maybe, your wife's done cooking, so maybe you could alleviate some of her stress. She could take a week off of cooking, 2 weeks off of cooking, and try clean creations. This is a gift. You could do that. You could buy your wife a treadmill, but Barbara's telling me like, Barbara, why should a guy think twice about buying his wife a treadmill?
I, I can't really. I am not the right person to ask that question because I would love a new treadmill. We have a treadmill, but I mean, I love that gift. That's a great gift. But look, I think that is maybe a little bit like, hey, this is a you thing. This is a you problem. And like, here's your treadmill to try to fix that problem. That could be like how that's taken. But with the food, this is a we thing that can help all of us together as a family. And that feels a lot more, I think, compassionate than maybe just saying like, let me buy you a treadmill so you can get
Yeah.
on there and get a workout in.
But it's also the convenience factor. It's not just the
Totally.
wellness convenience. Like, hey, I see you had a hard day at work. Both spouse work and time. Like, and a lot of times, it is put on the woman to prepare the food. And I know in our relationship, I have to clean the kitchen after, which you're a great cook, but
I
make a huge mess
do
as
make a
well.
huge
So
mess.
um, sometimes I picture her just like throwing stuff around, like Dean's got to clean it, so just F it,
I don't
but uh,
do that.
but
I don't do that. I'm never cooking you a meal ever again. It's over. It's
but it's
done.
but
It's
it's
clean
the
creations forever for
yeah,
us.
that's fine. And but I think that the convenience aspect of it too, it's obviously helpful to
Guys,
eliminate that pressure for the mom who has to be she has to be at work, then she's got to be the mom when she gets home, and the kids want her, and the husband, she's got to be a great wife. This is just one less thing on her plate, no pun intended, to
Yeah.
just free it up. Let her go, if she wants to go be with the kids, be with her husband, whatever, or just go take a relaxing bath instead of cooking or whatever it may be. I think that's the other part that's missing besides just the great taste in food. It's just freeing up that time that you
Yeah.
can't get back.
And I would say my biggest piece of advice for any of my gentlemen listening, if you're presenting this to your wife, definitely make it a we thing. Like, hey, we deserve to have more time together. We deserve to, have more free time. I think that this would help us, because I think women already feel like this is so much of their responsibility to be the cook and the homemaker and like do the dinners and all that stuff. And so if you make it a you thing, or I mean, maybe that I would take it that way, is like you're not doing your job. So like let me get this so I can fix that problem. But if you make it a we thing, that it would benefit the whole family and us together in our, life, then I think it would really be much more well received.
Just shows you how different we think, huh, Matt? Like it's just like, it's just
Well,
in a good way. I mean, not one way is better than the other, but it's just like, you could get blindsided. Like, no, I thought I was doing something good here, but you
Right.
insulted her by bringing this up
Yeah,
the wrong way.
I'm just letting y'all know in advance, okay? I'm just trying to help a fella out. Okay.
what I was thinking about with the treadmill was like when you give a woman a treadmill, it's like saying, "Here, get to work. You're overweight," you know, versus,
Yeah.
"Hey, let's do clean creations for a month, so you don't have to cook, and we get to eat healthy, and we get to spend more time together, and it's more of an investment." That's kind of like what y'all were saying, and
Yeah. Didn't that sound so much better? I
yeah.
love that.
And then there's times of life where, like, the next 2 months, we have this going on, we have that going on. Like right now, we're doing home renovations, and we got a home here. We're moving stuff, and we're transferring stuff. We have to solve all these problems and make all these big decisions. Well, if you could just eliminate the whole food thing from the equation, you can alleviate a lot of stress. It's similar to like when things get really stressful, like remove alcohol from your life. Like these are like the things I would go to, people will outsource their housekeeping, people will outsource
Yeah.
laundry, people outsource their trash, whatever it is, all sorts of different things. This is just one more thing that people could potentially outsource to free up energy so they can focus on what they want to do. And
Yeah.
they're going to perform better. They're going to end up making more money because they perform better. It's a smart investment. They're going to have level emotions and their relationships are going to be better. Their health, their longevity is going to be better. And they're going to get more time. They're not going to get sick ever again or nearly as much. And I'm thinking like if you've got like a business and let's say you need your staff to perform really good for a period of time, I mean, cater clean creations to your business so your employees are at least clear-headed all afternoon, all morning, and that's another added perk for them.
100%. Yeah. Corporate wellness. Whew. Yeah. It is. It benefits everyone. Definitely it benefits the employer. And will certainly benefit the employees. For sure. Yeah, you're definitely dealing with less sick time and, just stronger overall, sharper staff, sharper staff. So when you do reduce, and that's the thing too, is that it's not just about reducing the inflammation in the body, but also in the brain. When you reduce inflammation, if there's inflammation in the brain, there's going to be anxiety and depression. So a lot of people who are suffering with anxiety and depression, there's a lot of inflammation in your brain, or could be potentially. So that's the food helps with that as well. So just overall better morale and um, just level of feeling.
Yeah. And here's my last idea. And this is like I think this is if you're really serious and you're ready to invest and you're really ready to like reset everything and you want a guaranteed solution, honestly, here's what I would do. I would do the war on dad bods, the morning class with the guys. These guys don't have to think. They wake up, work out, and that's it. It's 5 half hours a week. Then you do clean creations on top of that. So now your food's automated, your workouts are automated. You're not having to think, make decisions, or do anything. And something I've just recently incorporated into my program is the first 3 to 6 months that guys work out with me, I'm going to do half an hour of coaching with them once a week just to make sure they get momentum, just to make sure they get back on track. And all the troubleshooting's there, the accountability is really there, and they get this momentum, they get these habits. I mean, talk about the shift you can make in your health with all those variables. And Barbara's also a coach, so working with her is an option too there. I think you put those pieces together with the automated workouts, the automated food, and then the coaching support to come in. I mean, it's really hard to transform and turn around your health. It's really hard to change the brain and the habits of a human mind in general. And this to me is like so foundational, so fundamental. And once you really get better at this and feel and experience it, I think it's going to change everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
No question.
The biggest thing when you were just saying that, that that kind of struck me was like, don't do it alone. Don't go it alone. Like, utilize people around you. Like, that's what we are here for, to really hold people accountable, but also like just be there. Doing this alone is hard, man. It's really hard. It's too tough. So just utilize your resources and get people on your team. Like, man, my clients, like if they call me for anything, I'm like, all right, what are we doing? Like, let's go. I'm here to be a resource and to like really help people along the way. And I know for sure you are. So it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, always looking to outsource as much as we can, delegate what we can. And you don't have to learn how. Go to the person who's a professional at this and has so much experience doing it and ask them, ask who, not how. That's a big one. And sometimes it's hard to find the right who, but you got some who's right here if you guys are still listening.
Mm.
All right, before we
Yeah.
wrap up, is there anything y'all want to share with everybody?
No, I guess our contact information, definitely if you want to check out the food, if you're local in New Orleans, or North Shore, or we do still deliver to Baton Rouge. It's www.cleancreations.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Barb Wellness. I've got a lot of cooking content on there, like Matt said. But definitely if you have questions, reach out to me. I'm pretty active on social, so reach out to me via Instagram, or you can contact us through our website. We do have a retail also in Gretna on Lafayette Street in Old Gretna. So you can stop in anytime. We have made to order smoothies, avocado toast, and we have meals in our coolers 7 days a week. We are open. So yeah, if you're local in New Orleans and you have not tried us, you have to come and visit us and stop in and get a meal or a smoothie.
It's great. It's clean. It's healthy. Dean, you got anything?
No, she nailed it. And I just, I think that I hope people take away just, you know, not trying to be perfect with this, just to make the effort each day, whether with their food, with their workout, and just know that it doesn't have to be extreme. Um, if you do all that, you'll win. But it's pretty awesome to think, like you said, if someone's able to work with you in the morning and then have the food, I mean, it's game changer. You just free up so much. It's one less thing to think about. So
Yeah. I mean,
then you just get you get a uniform, or you get a like Steve Jobs, you wear the same thing, and then you're really
yeah,
crushing it at that point. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're removing a lot of decisions. You don't have to decide your
Yes.
workout. You don't have to grocery shop. You don't have to cook. You don't have to clean. You don't have to put the food together. You don't have to put the workout clothes on. It's just like all automated. So now you go and focus on the thing that you do best, and that's what everybody should be doing. Um,
Yes.
guys,
Absolutely.
I know y'all are busy. Thanks for making the time. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. And guys, all the links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.